Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Adventures in Tech. We've been joined by an incredible guest today, double masters educated from Thessaloniki and Imperial in Biomedical Engineering, led the research teams at Cortexica, currently the engineering director for Huddle, leading all machine learning functions, looking at the way that data is captured and then analysed in sport. Vassia, welcome to Adventures in Tech.
Hello, very happy to be here.
How are you doing?
Great.
Good stuff. Well, look, obviously the idea behind this is for us to really kind of deep dive into a bit about you, your background, and kind of where you've come from and how you got to the position that you're in, but also to kind of look at the wider implications of what's going on in AI right now, and kind of get your thoughts on a few bits and kind of see how we go from there. So I guess kind of the first thing I wanted to dive straight in with is looking at your background. I mean, obviously I've touched on it a little bit there, but you going from kind of doing a dissertation in liver cancer and biomedical engineering to then moving into machine learning. Yeah. How did that all come about?
It's a good question. So as you mentioned, I did focus on image processing during uni. I was very interested in the kind of medical side of things, but the underlying technologies was about how you process images, how you use algorithms to make sense of pixels or signals.
Yeah.
And then when I came into the UK, I did my master's in bioengineering, but focusing on neuroscience. So kind of learn more about how the brain works and kind of some early stage neural networks. But deep learning did not exist yet, was not as widespread. Then I joined Cortexica, which was focusing on computer vision, which is kind of part of image processing. And we're doing things in the more traditional way. So again, with algorithms where we would focus on how the pixels interact and how you can extract information out of them. And then with the onset of deep learning and kind of having more like neural networks that we can apply on images, then we started combining both. And then I kind of moved more on that deep learning space, still using the traditional methods when applicable. And so since 2016, the focus has been more on deep learning, still focusing a lot on image processing, so still doing applications on images and video at Cortexica and now at Huddle. But it has been like a transition, and deep learning kind of combines both how the brain works into how you use that to then process and understand the world around you.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So you're now engineering director at Huddle.
Yeah.
What does Huddle actually do in simple terms?
Okay, good question. So Huddle is a sports analytics company. We help athletes and coaches get better at what they do. And we're doing that by providing like software and tools to different levels, mostly for team sports, for them to capture. So we have our own cameras, which we can install in stadiums, or we have a portable one, so we can help them capture their games. Then we have tools to analyze their games, get their stats, get analytics, or give them software to do that themselves for the higher level tiers that they have their own analysts. And then for athletes also to get their highlights and get noticed and get recruited.
Okay.
So our mission is to help coaches and athletes get better at their sport.
Okay, perfect. So in terms of kind of the metrics that you're pulling out and or that you're able to capture then, typically what kind of things, so for a footballer, for example, what kind of things are you actually kind of looking at?
Yeah, it depends where, like we can start from the camera aspect. So we have machine learning models running on the camera to help the camera automatically pan and zoom and follow the play. So you don't need to have a cameraman doing that. Then that's going to get processed through Huddle. We can identify like significant moments during the game. Okay. And then for higher level tiers, you can do full like player tracking and get their IDs. So knowing every point where each player is on the field. And then we can use the data for further analytics and statistics that can help the coaches and the teams. So just one example.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And in terms of the kind of your role within Huddle then, obviously engineering director, obviously that's a job title that unfortunately means a million different things to everyone. What are you actually responsible for? What are you doing?
Yeah. So I lead the machine learning function within Huddle. We're kind of a separate team that we interface with other business units and functions across Huddle. And our mission is to kind of put machine learning models into different products and help either automate or provide further insights and data to our customers. So I'm responsible for like the technical strategy, leading the team itself. So has been growing the team, mentorship and creating this kind of high functional team.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges with this space is how do you get things into production? How do you actually go do this, what we call applied machine learning? So how do you get from a nice algorithm to actually putting that into production, making it efficient, make it cost effective, make it accurate enough to be good enough for your use case. So a lot of it is interfacing with the rest of the company, finding what is the strategy that will get us to that point where we can have machine learning models into production, having high impact. So a lot of my time goes into that technical strategy, putting things together, and then leading the team.
Perfect. And you spoke about kind of growing that function and growing the teams as well. Obviously, one of the things that that we've noticed from a kind of recruitment perspective is that there tends to be a massive lack of diversity in a lot of kind of newer emerging disciplines from a technical perspective, certainly. Obviously, as a woman in a very senior kind of leadership role within a very technical discipline, how have you found that journey kind of yourself, and how are you finding it getting other people from underrepresented groups or kind of different diverse backgrounds into your teams?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, I would say, generally increasing diversity within tech disciplines. I'll touch first on your kind of first question, how it has been for me. Like I was usually kind of a minority on the different areas, maybe not in the university as much, but more like going into industry.
Sure.
I think what helped me a lot was just having a lot of support around me from my managers, mentors, and even my family, to be honest. And so there is like a couple of, I guess, moments also in my career that were kind of helped me with the growth aspect and getting into more like a leadership role. So when within Huddle, like I applied, like there was the opportunity to officially become an engineering manager. But at the time I was like 7 months pregnant. So I was like, okay, this is probably not the best time for me, maybe not the best for the company. I probably shouldn't even bother applying. But my manager really encouraged me, and the leadership within the company, they gave me the opportunity. Nice. So I already started before I left off maternity leave, and when I came back, I continued doing that role. And I think like the company has been super supportive in that sense, and that has helped me grow within Huddle.
Yeah.
So it's about finding, and maybe from the outside, Huddle is not, when I joined, was not very diverse, but like, again, we have put a lot of effort into making that more diverse, but it didn't mean that they didn't support like that diverse. So it's kind of finding the companies who would actually support diversity and help. And I think for what I try to do is kind of try to be a bit of a role model as much as possible for younger, especially engineers, trying to kind of go into events and talk to kind of graduates and encourage more women to follow a technical career. Like I feel a lot of them do technical degrees, but then choose to do take different paths, and try to encourage them to take opportunities. Don't be scared of kind of apply for that more senior role or more leadership position. And I think it has helped me seeing other women in these roles, and then I try to do the same.
It sounds like you had a really incredible kind of sort of leadership team and kind of support network around you, though, for, especially when you're 7 months pregnant, to still have that kind of, to be able to feel that kind of support from the business and so on is obviously something that would no doubt kind of drive you. And you touched on mentors, though, and kind of having people to mentor you. One thing I've always kind of found quite difficult is kind of sourcing the right mentor for you. How did you find kind of the people that you look up to, or the people that kind of you mentor you, and how did you engage with them?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have a a mentor. I'm trying to I think it needs to be intentional. So you need to seek out for
Yeah.
it. There's, I would say, there's people that I worked with that I would respect. They would usually be a little bit older than me,
Yeah.
and kind of follow their advice. Or so it kind of, from me, it has been more organic through work, basically, and or managers. Like at Huddle, I've changed managers a couple of times,
Yeah.
but like your previous manager can still act as a mentor even though they don't
Yeah.
manage you anymore. So, but again, you need to kind of, as a person, seek for it, and it's not always easy, and it's not easy also to maintain it
Yeah.
at times. But it's also it's also hard to think what you want
Yeah.
from a mentor. So I also try, within Huddle, we have like a mentorship program, and I also try to mentor some, again, like female, especially engineers. But
Yeah.
again, it's hard to give them, like bring the value to them, and
Yeah.
how you have that balance of having it be natural and but also structured at the same time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work as well, but I think you just have to try.
Biomedical engineering and that side of things, obviously through to research. How was the actual transition from research into applied machine learning? How did you find that change? Like I said, two very different things.
Yeah, so that's I actually started a PhD at Imperial. So I leaned a lot more on the kind of research side, but I did not enjoy it at all. So I quit after a year, which is quite unusual. And then I went back to industry. I think it's because I worked in a startup for a bit, so I kind of enjoyed that a lot more than doing the PhD. So then that's where for me it was like, okay, I enjoy solving problems and kind of diving deeper on how you build a solution to solve a problem, but not in that more theoretical research way, but more on the applied way. So it was more, for me, it became more intentional that I enjoy reading about the research and then taking that and applying into a more real world problem. So even in Cortexica, I was more on the applied side and try to get the research we're building, or the researchers we're building, and applying it, building proof of concepts to problems, and kind of how you build the pieces. Again, it's how you build the pieces and create the solution and put that into production.
That's super interesting. What was your PhD initially going to be in?
So it was in bioengineering. So it was, again, image processing for it was a combination of robotics, and how you can use robotics to detect, again, diseases and use image processing.
Seems like that's a space that there's a lot of investment in AI right now within that kind of healthcare disease detection side of things.
Yeah.
It seems like
That's a bit different, though. This is because of the AlphaFold breakthrough from DeepMind. There's a lot of, and now it's open source, there's a lot of companies trying to apply that.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of advancements in robotics as well, like a lot more than what was 10 years ago. But that's the whole point of doing a PhD or a research, right? Then you're part of doing these breakthroughs. Or,
how this advances.
Doing that actual research.
Off air, obviously, I think we're talking about this as well. You're talking about, obviously, being a woman in tech. Obviously, naturally, there are challenges that come with that, I guess, could be around perception and around different things. What challenges have you, I guess, experienced, I guess, being a woman in tech, especially in such like a senior position? And I guess, how have you overcome those challenges?
Yeah. I think it goes back to that, having good support and kind of confidence, I guess. It's hard. I find a lot of times I have to maybe prove myself more than I would have otherwise, or people would assume when they see you that you're the less technical person. Like I've had even calls with like a consultancy once at Huddle, and they were like, oh, maybe I have some technical questions, but we should wait until a technical person joins the call. And I'm like, how do you even assume that?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be that person. So it's just this perception of people, or like even when I was like in university still doing more like research, I was in a conference presenting a poster, and someone came at me and he's like, oh, are you part of the marketing team? And it's like, how would you even think about that? So, you get these comments, but it's about like not kind of paying too much attention. Like I just say, okay, this is just a natural bias of people as they have for other things. I also have biases, so everybody has. So it's about you as a person kind of overcoming it and seeing other people around you from other backgrounds, and then again having that support. I feel a lot of it is also the role models, which is why I am trying to be a role model for other younger women.
Was there anything like specific like that helped, I guess not helped you, but maybe assisted you while trying to overcome those challenges? Was there anything that you kind of drew strength from, or anyone that you looked at in those situations? I guess there's a lot of unconscious bias, which then I guess becomes a limiting belief within someone, which obviously then inhibits their career. Or was there anything specific that you overcame, how you overcame it?
Trying to think. I think just seeing some very, known women, like if you take Marisa Mayer, like seeing her going from Google to CEO position, and while having twins. Kind of it's this like situation where you're like, oh, okay. I mean, it sounds super difficult, but someone else is doing
Someone you can relate to.
Not really, but it's like look up. It's more like look up to. It's like someone is doing something even harder, and they're able to do it. And then I think it goes back to having a very supportive team. Like my team at Huddle have always been great, and so being in an environment where people are more open-minded and kind of accept you, which I think is very important also when you're like looking for jobs or in recruitment. Like it's very that kind of culture interview or process. I think it's important for you to see. I mean, it's very hard to tell from an hour or 2 hours, but
Of course.
it is an important aspect. Like, do you feel welcome? And like when I interviewed with Huddle, I felt really welcomed, and I think it really helped me grow and overcome any.
If I frame the question just slightly differently as like a small section, but what's like one piece of advice you'd give like someone new to tech, like as a female or anyone from a less diverse background when coming into tech? Like what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Yeah,
to
I
make
think
that journey easier?
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
Like take the opportunity. Like speak, get up, draw on your own. Go up, make yourself visible. Go on there and drawing board and write down what you want to say. You need potentially to put more effort than a different person, especially in the beginning, but it's not a bad thing. I think at times it can make you better. So it's kind of like take the opportunity and don't like and it kind of goes a little bit on the imposter syndrome, like do things to overcome that, like write things down, the things you're doing well, kind of to reinforce yourself and find opportunities and find people, again, in the organization or outside that would support you and would encourage you to take these opportunities as well.
Yeah.
So even when I was like really starting my career, like in Cortexica, one of my colleagues was great. He would always encourage me to say my ideas and share them. And I think, there's little things that can help people. And I think for the other people, like the other side, or regardless where you are from, like if you see that's happening, if you see a new person or being more shy, regardless of diversity or not, encourage them to share their ideas. Like this is also what I'm trying to do, like kind of encourage people to be more open. And this may happen regardless where you come from.
Give people the confidence, basically. Encourage them. Yeah. Awesome.
Perfect. So the kind of second part of this is really for us to kind of dig into the kind of thought leadership side of things around AI and kind of machine learning specifically. One of the things that I wanted to understand is how people can better prepare for a world that's no doubt going to involve more AI.
Good question. I think by understanding it more.
Yeah.
So the more you understand something, the less you're scared of it, the better you can use it.
Yeah.
So I would say it's a mix of, depending on your background, but it's a mix of reading about it or trying to educate yourself about it whichever way suits you best. Like there's a lot of resource, maybe too much out there. And then especially if you come from a technical background, but even if you don't, like try things out. Like you see people talk about ChatGPT, use it and see what it does, right? It's not, anybody can use it, it's fine. And if you're an engineer, you can take it a step further and kind of try to integrate it with things you're doing. So it's about, it's not I mean, it is a little bit of a black box, but it doesn't mean you cannot understand at least the basics of how it works, and then that makes it less scary, and then it makes you better prepared. I think a big aspect of it is also the data. I think it makes you realize a bit more as a consumer or as an engineer how you use your data, how you protect your data.
Yeah.
So I think it raises their awareness and also what people can do with AI. And potentially if you want to be, how careful you want to be.
Yeah.
So I would say education is big part of it.
I think there was because I saw a big piece around sort of deepfakes and people being able to completely kind of create personas for people. But there's recently been I can't remember who it was exactly, but someone's built a kind of protection software that kind of overlays.
I've the same thing. It's I think it's called PhotoGuard. It's from a research team in MIT.
Right,
so
okay.
they created a way to basically protect your images from being tinkered with
Right. Okay.
machine learning. Which like these things are like great, but then again you need to know about it to use it. But so they would take an image like your picture. It would change in a way that you wouldn't understand that it's being changed as a human, but then it makes it really hard for a network to manipulate it.
Gotcha.
And I think these things are also help with like regulating AI and protecting consumers from like less good use of AI and stuff like that. Yeah.
I think one of the things that kind of has always sort of worried me is probably the wrong word, but certainly kind of something that I started to pay more attention to is the provenance of images and videos and things like that you see on social media, because chances are someone's created something using AI or it's completely out of context. And I think being able to kind of protect against that and kind of at least kind of limit the amount that's done is always going to be a definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, it's the same. Similar to how teachers are trying now to identify if students are using ChatGPT to write their essays, and like OpenAI had the tool to help with that. Now it's not very accurate, so they're taking it down. So there is, I think this is it's part of the process. Everything is new. People will use it in the wrong way, maybe, or non-optimal way, but I think it's a learning curve.
Obviously, you mentioned research is critical. Obviously, I guess a lot of with AI, it's just a fear of the unknown. So like just educating yourself on it, having a play around, obviously super helps. And I don't know if you do, but how, are you using AI day to day? Like do you use AI day to day? And how are you using it?
Everybody's like, you don't even realize, right? Everything you do has some form of AI. Like you go somewhere, Google Maps will use AI to give you the shortest route. You will open Spotify, you'll get recommendations which are done by AI. You go home, I don't know, watch Netflix, you're gonna again get recommendation. You might use Alexa to do things. So it's all around us. We just don't really realize or think about it.
It's very true.
But then I think there is a more intentional uses. Like you can use ChatGPT now to help you write something potentially, or summarize something, or translate something. I don't know, depending on what you're doing. There is a lot of things for programming, like GitHub Copilot or tools like that can help you again become a faster programmer. But it's all how, again, goes back to understanding also how these tools work and use them in the right way. Like it helps you do things faster, basically. Most of these things will help you do things faster.
How do you feel about people using AI to write code?
Good. I mean, it's I think it can help with some kind of repetitive, boring tasks, or it can help you. You would, when you code, you would Google a lot of things. So it kind of speeds that up. You don't have to Google it anymore. It's there for you, and it learns from also your code and how you want things or how you would prompt things. I think there is some danger potentially with more junior developers, but I think that's why you have a process within development cycle to review code and to help them.
Do you feel like there's potentially a danger of kind of laziness creeping in, or kind of shortcuts creeping in for engineers that maybe haven't been around the block already?
I think I'm hoping the opposite, that
Okay.
it's gonna make people be more creative, like
Okay.
try a different thing. So you spend less time, I don't know, writing unit tests because it's faster to do it with Copilot or whatever you use. So you can spend your time actually solving a harder problem. So I'm hoping, the hope is that it's gonna make people generally like focus on more creative tasks. Like if you save time from doing a task, like hopefully you'll use the time to doing something more interesting or more creative. Right? You don't want to be queuing at the airport for half an hour to going through passport control. You like to use the e-gates and take you 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
hopefully you can use this 20 minutes to do something
Okay.
nicer, right?
And I think this sort of brings us on quite nicely to kind of the ethical side of AI and kind of understanding where that line should maybe be drawn and kind of how do you govern that and what does the regulatory piece look like around that.
Yeah.
Do you think that AI needs more regulation?
Yes, would be the answer. I don't think anybody would say no, but at the same time, like it moves too fast for governments to be able to catch up.
Okay.
So I think a lot of it falls actually on the tech companies and them kind of doing the right thing or developing again tools to help people and protect people. I think governments can encourage that by maybe investing in these companies or encouraging them or
Sure.
like things like data protection. Like there is things governments can do to help. But a lot of responsibility in the end falls into the tech companies and kind of how they build and release and
It's interesting.
things.
How do you get someone whose intrinsic motivations for most companies will be profit? So like obviously innovation will always increase profit generally, which is how people look at it. How do you make it that a company's willing to invest in their own regulation?
I think there's a responsibility piece that, it's kind of, I was talking to someone that works in the online gaming and gambling industry. And obviously AI in that respect is one of the most kind of, it's a real kind of threat because it can wipe your bank account out immediately if it wanted to. And kind of there's a responsibility to companies like that to be able to look at that and go, well, sometimes we should and sometimes we probably shouldn't, or let's utilize AI, but let's utilize it for more of a responsibility and regulatory and kind of look at kind of triggers of when someone's doing some, abnormal activity and things like that on their account and so on. What do you, in terms of kind of opportunities with AI, and kind of the wider sort of technology around that as well, what do you think the biggest opportunity for us right now is within that space?
Us, like...
It's a wide question, isn't it?
Like humans?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Sorry, yeah, not just us.
Not just us. Yeah. Okay. I think a lot. I think it goes, like, there's a lot of breakthroughs from research, right? Like, I'll go back, like, okay, we've been talking about ChatGPT. I think this is, the technology has been existed. It's more like, it's more available to people to try it. But there's actual other breakthroughs that are more important or can be more significant, like the AlphaFold from DeepMind. Mm-hmm. It can accelerate drug discovery. They're doing more work on like robotics, which have other applications. There is also applying AI in other industries which are less traditionally have used less technology like that, like agriculture. So we see like drones using again like images to see where there are weeds and kind of have help farmers with like their crops and weeding. So you see different applications, different spaces. There's also things around like fraud detection, and so there's, I think, a lot of applications in a lot of spaces. Some we think about, some we don't think about.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of companies in a lot of different industries, I think, doing valuable work, and there's a lot of innovation that comes from either companies or research centers.
Perfect.
The only thing that would be interesting to talk about, we spoke about the opportunity, and obviously it's massive opportunity. What do you think is like the biggest risk of AI, and how do we maybe try and mitigate that, if you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I don't know what's the biggest risk. I think the data aspect I think generally is a risk again on how data is being used and regulated, and then how do you again detect things that have been generated automatically or not, and when does it even matter? So I think there's a lot of advancement. There's things move fast. So I think it's about just keep thinking about it, and have, again, goes back to regulation and how we can incentivize big tech companies be more aware. So I think it's hard to say there's like one risk. I don't think AI is going to take over the world. But,
No iRobot.
But there are things that can impact people in a negative way.
It's quite interesting, right? I guess the same as when the internet first started or when social media first came around.
Exactly.
It's always like, generally in tech, it's probably like a 5 to 7 year lag before regulation matches, and even then there's a new innovation.
Yeah.
So like before they could regulate e-commerce, and then you got social media companies, and then now you got AI. How do you regulate it all?
So obviously we've spoken about some pretty kind of serious and kind of heavy topics around AI and stuff.
Yeah.
Where we like to finish things is usually something a little bit more light-hearted, something a bit,
So we're going to the pub?
if you want to. But I've just got a couple of quick fire questions just to kind of rattle through with you. So what's the one thing that you do to escape from work?
Oh, okay. I like to go for a run. So pretty simple, which is the whole point. Just get out the door, run, come back, done. But I think especially if I do it in the morning, it gives me kind of a good boost of energy. And then kind of like going into nature, doing like nature walks with the kids.
Sure.
So kind of escaping the city.
Yeah.
And the tech.
Yeah.
Just
logging off properly.
Yeah. Exactly.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
That's a difficult question. I think for me it has been a lot of like smaller demonstrations than a piece of advice. One I maybe quite like. It's very simple, but it's kind of to draw things.
Okay.
So a lot of times, and it goes a little bit to diversity. I think men and women think a little bit differently on how we explain things. So I find actually drawing things and creating diagrams and writing things down has a big effect on making sure that everybody understands the same thing and kind of creating a better solution and getting everybody kind of on the same page.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Kind of goes to my next question then. What's the best piece of advice you've ever given to someone?
The same one. So I say that quite a lot to my teams, and then just take the leap. Like, don't be scared.
If you had your time again and you weren't an AI, what would you be doing?
I've always been interested in education. So maybe something around teaching or
What's probably the best course or like reading material, however you want to phrase it, that you think anyone who's a beginner to AI and machine learning should probably go to first?
Yeah, I think it depends how you learn. So there's different things. I quite like videos is kind of my preferred medium. There's a couple of courses which are very like popular, like machine learning, Intro to Machine Learning by Andrew Ng. Like it has been the thing that most people have watched, no matter their background. There's some other ones like Making Friends with Machine Learning from Casey's, is like from Google, and it's kind of bite-sized. Course which it's kind of on YouTube. It's free. You can, and there is and then it's around like if you're interested in a specific topic, like then you can go search. Like OpenAI has a lot of courses as well around LLMs and stuff like that. So I think it depends a little bit on what you're interested in. I think if it's something very generic, then I think these two, and then I haven't read a book, I would say, which I found it's the book to read, but I think the Orally series has, again, a lot of nice, good books on specific topics, depending on the interest. And then if you have some coding ability, I think just trying things out. So a lot of courses come with, like, you can try some simple building some simple things, and then that really can help you understand how things work. Like Andrei Karpathy has also a series on YouTube how you can build like some very basic functions of a neural network and understand how it learns things.
Yep.
So, final question for you. Hypothetically, venture capital, our VC fund exists.
Okay.
We give you 100 million to spend.
Okay.
What problem are you going to solve?
Okay. Yeah, that's a difficult choice. I'll go back to the education aspect. So I don't know what, but something around education tech. So I feel EdTech gets less investment. It's harder to actually make profit as well. But I feel like our education system can use more advancements, and it's changing very slowly. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in EdTech to actually apply machine learning or AI, as you wish to call it, and help any age or ability to help them learn. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time today.
No, thank you.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I hope kind of everyone's got something out of this. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Has been great.
Thank you very much.
Talk.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Adventure into Tech podcast. Please like, share and subscribe, and let us know what you thought in the comments.